Piersas Morganas šnekėjo su Rusijos MP, Member of Parliament, tiesiog Seimūnas. Piersas Morganas, žiūrim, man nepatinka šį Piersą Morganą interviu, žiūrėjom ir su Andrew Tate ir ten keletą žiūrėjęs, problema yra didžiausia, kad jis neduoda niekam šnekėti. Užduoda klausimus su feministams, su bet kuo. Ir jisai gali būti teisus, bet jis tiek neduoda niekam šnekėti. Tai aš nežinau, net nėra vertinga labai dažnai klausyti.
Welcome back to Piers Uncensored. Jeremy Bowen is still with me. Donald Trump is notorious for...
Grinai žinomas, kad neduodu šnekėti žmonėm. Ir tada įdedu 2 valandų pokalbį su šizofrenika sergančiai žmonėm, kurie 2 valandas pasakoja taip. Grinai.
Featuring one solitary tank. Vladimir Putin accused the West of unleashing war on Russia. Of course, the opposite is true. And the war that he began, expecting victory over Ukraine in just days, has been a disaster for his country. Russia's military is beset by infighting. The head of Putin's Wagner mercenary group is brazenly questioning his dictator.
What will the country do? Our children, grandchildren, who are the future of Russia? And how can we win this war if, by chance, and I'm just speculating here, it turns out that this grandfather is a complete moron?
Extraordinary broadside there against Vladimir Putin. Well, today the UK confirmed it sent long-range cruise missiles to Ukraine as it prepares a massive counter-offensive. Putin losing the war and his grip on power. I'm joined by Yevgeny Popov, an MP for Putin's United Russia Party and host of the Russian 60 Minutes news program. Mr. Popov, thank you very much indeed for joining me. Why is Russia losing this war?
Let me correct you, Piers, and thank you for giving me your floor. I'm not a member of any party in Russia. I am in a faction of parliamentary in Russian Duma of United Russia. And of course, I'm for Vladimir Putin, especially right now. Russia is not losing the war. Of course, we can see your plans to make an offense to our territory, to our troops, to some Russian cities inside my country. But we're gonna fight for our security guarantees for Russian people on Donbass, because you told a lot of stories today, but you didn't tell the main story. 7 people have been injured in Horlivka in Donbass. 1 people was killed by Ukrainian bomb in Donetsk today. Many people have been injured in Kherson territory. But you only see and you only cover one side.
Hang on. Let me stop you there.
Būt praktiškai neįmanoma point by point eiti tipo su tokiu žmogum, ne. Ką Piersas Morganas gerai? Jis pradėjo interviu sakydamas, kodėl Rusija pralaimi karą. Tipo. Kaip? Tipo, žiūrint, ko tu sieki. Jeigu tai būtų, čia yra 12 minučių. Jeigu tu turi 2 valandas tokiu žmogum šnekėti, tada gerai. Dabar tik pasakai dalykų. Reikia į juos labai gilintis, kiekvieną atskirai, ir narplioti. Tam nėra laiko. Tipo, ir net nežinau, čia anglų kalba gali būti blokas, kad tokią diskusiją turėt, kalbos barjeras. Tai ką Piersas Morganas gali daryti? Jis gali išsirinkti kokius 2-3 punktus, kur žino gan gerai, kad argumentai jo pusėj bus ir kad publika jo pusėj bus, agės. Ir tiesiog neleisti judėti nuo jų. Tik, žinai, pradės kažką supasakoti kaip dabar, stabdyti tada gal ir gražinti. Jūs inveidinot nelegaliai ir vis gražinti, ir nes neturi kaip pradėti. Ten, jis aišku, tada sakys, ten čia NATO encroachinimas, provokacija, bet tada Piersas Morganas gali jam ir, aš nežinau, arba neleisti daug pasisakyti, arba tiesiog kartuoti tą patį, arba tada perėti prie kito punkto, bet turėti kokius 3, 4, 5 punktus, ir neleisti žmogui judėti nuo jų, aš neįsivaizduoju, gerai, klausom. Aš čia galvoju, to žiūrėsim. Aš čia galvoju, kaip, tipo, jeigu aš tokį turėčiau progą, tipo, 12 minučių pašnekėti, tipo, tu negali diskusijos, debato turėti O tam, kad atrodytum gerai, tu turi labai griežtas būti, ir labai specifinės vietas kovoti. Aš panašiai prieš Lėkštutį ruošiaus, kai ruošiaus pokalbį su jom, iki kol jisai kaip triohala nepabėgo. Aš realiai ruošiaus 3 turėjau labai stiprius argumentus, nuo kurių ir nebūčiau judinęs dialogo, nes jis ten negali laimėti ir turėtų arba pripažinti, kai jis melavo, arba pripažinti, kad klydo, arba vartytis, bet aš nebūčiau leidęs jam bėgti niekur nuo tų 3 ar 4 argumentų. Ir aš nežinau, aš taip daryčiau galbūt. Okay.
One side. Hang on.
Let me stop you there. The real story, if you want the real story, is that Russia illegally invaded Ukraine, a democratic sovereign country, which is now a democracy. They illegally invaded it over a year ago, assumed it would just run it over in a few days, met extraordinary resistance from the Ukrainian people, and has spent the next year and a bit committing war crimes, acts of utter barbarism against the Ukrainian people, deliberately targeting civilians, targeting maternity hospitals, shelling people in streets, committing mass murder all over Ukraine. That's the real story.
That's the real story for you, because you live in the myths, dear Piers. Because I thought you were a reporter and journalist, because we used to live in New York at the same time, and I well remember you on CNN, and you've been great journalist, great interviewer. But let me answer your questions. If you're talking to me about real situation, but I can tell you about real situation.
Go ahead.
How about Georgia? Yesterday we lifted ban on direct flights between Georgia and Russia. What was the United States response? They told Tbilisi, the real democratic government of a sovereign country, that they can't fly to Russia. Georgians can't fly to Russia. We canceled visa regime with Georgia. What the United States told us. Not
but
to
hang
us.
on. With respect, you're not talking about what I just explained to you. It's a real story. Why did Russia illegally invade Ukraine? Why is Russia committing endless war crimes in Ukraine? Why is Russia kidnapping?
Iš tikrųjų, čia jis tą gerai daro. Tik pradėjo kažką apie Georgią kalbėti grąžino. Jo,
Tens of thousands of Ukrainian children and taking them out of the country. Why are you as a country doing all these things? Why is Vladimir Putin?
Va čia dabar jau enough. Čia vat ką daro Piersas Morganas, mane užpisa, tipo. Nes paklausai ir tada grąžinai atgal, viskas gerai, bet dabar tu vėl kartoji tą patį, ką tik paklausai. Nu, tipo, ir aš man tas labai nepatinka. Kai paklausai, duok jam atsakyti, bet...
Like a brazen dictator who thinks he can just seize countries and kill anyone that gets in his way. They're the questions I want you to answer. Do you have any answer?
What question you want me to respond first?
Why did you illegally invade Ukraine?
We didn't invade Ukraine. I can tell you a long story.
Well, don't bother with a long story. You clearly invaded Ukraine.
Crimes of Ukrainian government. I can tell you a lot of stories which I've been seeing by my own eyes on Donbass. How Ukrainian army still killing many Russians on Donbass territory.
The Ukrainian people, led by President Zelensky, are defending themselves against what has resembled, on occasion, genocidal behavior by Russia. And I don't use that phrase lightly. I went to Bucha, for example, in Kyiv, and saw for myself the scene of the massacre that occurred there. I talked to people who had lost relatives in that massacre. That was a war crime. And Vladimir Putin and others involved in this are going to be held account to it.
Jo, čia Piersas Morganas visiškai nėra interesuotas net girdėti realiai atsakymus, bet jis net ne, tas Popovas, jis net anglų kalbos gerai nežino, kad pradėtų atsakinėti. Bet čia nėra interviu. Čia yra Piersas Morganas, tiesiog Dunkins ir viskas. Jam net nesvarbu čia atsakymai ir kažką.
I simply ask you again, Why did Russia illegally invade
Galime mėginti klausti, jisai neatsakys ir Piersas Morganas kiekvieną kartą savo diktuos.
And it was supposed to last 3 days.
Kas yra, aišku, fine.
When are you going to accept this has been a total fiasco, a disaster for Russia? We saw the pathetic scene at the victory parade at one, which presumably is all you've got left to show off on your victory parade. When are you going to stop the killing and the murder?
You're like Tucker Carlson. This is your mono.
It's not a monologue. I'm just telling you some cold, hard facts.
This is not facts. You don't know facts because I have heard your questions. Because this story had began many years before our invasion to Ukraine.
Well, when you invaded Crimea, you mean?
You should study.
Ta išraiška, dar kartelį.
When you invaded Crimea, you mean?
You should study history.
I know when you invaded Crimea, yeah. You illegally invaded Crimea in 2014, and then you illegally invaded Ukraine last year.
I've seen it by my own
I'm fairly up to speed on the history of what you've been doing.
I've been in Donbass, I've been in Crimea. I've seen everything by my own eyes, you know? And I can tell you about every moment of this conflict from 2004, from
yeah, but you don't think that Russia invaded Ukraine. Therefore, you're living in a totally deluded world which doesn't exist, because obviously Russia invaded Ukraine. Everybody saw it. The whole world saw it. But you called it a special operation, and the special operation turned out to be a complete disaster, didn't it? And now you're losing, and even the Wagner mercenary group are calling Putin a moron.
Can I answer you?
Yeah.
Can I respond?
If you can.
Kiek žodžių leis pasakyti?
I don't think it's funny, Mr. Popov. You might.
It's not funny.
I don't think the slaughter and the maiming of thousands and thousands...
Čia, ką aš sakiau pradžioje, Piersas Morganas ką daro. Galima sakyti, jis, gerai, to be fair, Popovas norėtų atsakyti kai kurios dalykus, bet jis negalėjo šiandien 2 žodžių pasakyti. Nes, tipo, jis pradėjo juoktis ir jis, pasijuokžnai, blėt. Gerai, žiūrėk, Piersai Morganai. Dėl invazijos, ir gal ir atsakyti pradėtų bent jau, bet kai Piersas Morganas ką daro, jis net neleis. Tu pradėjai juokti, žinai, sakai, atsakyk, jeigu gali, ir tu iš naujo prisipisi prie kažko. Tipo, čia kaip pykstė su kažkokia psichė pana. Ir, tipo, nori ginčti apie vieną dalyką, bet ką besakytum, prisipis iš naujo. Ne taip pakvėpavai, per lėtai atsakėjai, ten akis užvertėjai ir prisipis prie tavęs, ką bedarytum, ką besakytum, prie naujo dalyko prisipis ir tu neatsakysi tą pirmą niekad dalyką. Tai realiai čia tokia strategija yra, kai tu labai nori prie visko prisipist.
Thousands of innocent civilians in Ukraine is funny. Sorry, I don't.
As Russia can say any word. I, as Russian people, as my state, can say a word. We can't explain what happens because you live in the myths, you live in this Western stereotypes. You should respond. You should give. Give arrest warrants to Tony Blair, to George Bush for Iraq. You should give
for Obama for Libya. Okay.
What about this Muslim?
For what it's worth, I led the campaign in Britain with the Daily Mirror newspaper against the Iraq war. I felt that was... Well, hang on. Let me finish. I thought that was an illegal invasion of a sovereign country, not dissimilar to what we've been seeing in Ukraine from Russia.
No.
And I'm not afraid, Mr. Popov, to admit that I think my country behaved illegally with that invasion. Are you prepared to admit that your country illegally invaded Ukraine?
You're going to send your Prime Minister to behind the bars? You didn't do that.
Are you prepared to admit your country illegally invaded Ukraine?
Oof.
That's completely false. And that's not true.
Okay. Mr. Popov, if you can't, honestly, if you're going to deny the obvious,
Jesus,
we're going to have to leave it there. I appreciate you joining me. Thank you very much.
Oh, I think...
Jeremy.
I think taip ir neleidėm nieko pasakyti. Holy shit, čia pasikvietė iš čia pasidergt.
Level of delusion where you can have a Russian politician who will not even admit.
Čia esmė buvo, jį pasikvietė, kad iš jo maždaug pasityčiot ir tada jį atjungti ir tada, žiūrėkit, tai šitas psichas, ką jūs galvojate apie šitą psichą? What the fuck?
They invaded a country when we all watched it happen. What do we do with that?
Well, I think from their point of view, what they're after is the consistency of their line. They don't want leaks in the front that they've put out. And he's a big supporter of Putin, so he's echoing what Putin says. And he knows he can't convince you. So I think that when they talk like that, they're talking to their own audience, but they're also, the fact is, around the world, China, India, the global south, a lot of people are more likely to agree with him.
Yeah, I read somewhere a third of the world has sympathy with, if not fulsome support for what Russia's done in Ukraine.
Because they look at what the West has done, and you talked about Iraq, and they've thought, and they think, well, where's the difference? I mean, that is a opinion that's held.
I would say the difference is that in this country, people like me on television, journalists, we're able to say freely if we believe that invasion was illegal.
We have a democracy and we have a free press, and over there it's an autocracy, and it comes out, you know, Putin sets the line, they follow it. So I think all you can do when you talk to these people is what you do. You've got to stick to your guns and try and put the other case.
Donald Trump said in this CNN thing yesterday that he thought he would solve the Ukraine war in one day if he wins the White House. Let's take a listen to this.
Let me just put it a nicer way. If I'm president, I will have that war settled in one day, 24 hours.
How would you settle that war in one day?
Ir žmonės ploja, man tas visą laiką juokingiausia būna, kai tokį autistišką, tokią nesąmonę pasako ir tiesiog žmonės plot. Why? Kodėl jūs plojat? Aš žinau, kad čia idiotas tik taip gali pasakyti.
He's mad.
I mean, it's preposterous.
Deluded, it's preposterous. Maybe what he's saying is, I will turn off the tap that keeps the Ukrainians going of money and weapons, and then they'll lose. That'll settle it. And that, of course, would be a great victory for Putin, if it happened that way.
How do you see it ending, this Ukraine war?
Well, I think that this is pretty important, because if someone like Trump if Trump himself beats Biden and goes into the White House, then I think the money tap will get turned off or really, really throttled back. And actually, the Ukrainians really need this Western support if they're going to win. Russia has a population 4 times.
Okay, we're done. Ja, nu, iš esmės, maždaug kur tikėjos, gal net nesitikėjau tokio lygio, bet kur tikėjos, aš nežinau, Piersas Morganas galėtų būti gal kietas ir interviu viską, bet, nu, čia buvo bevertis visiškai, tipo, tiesiog bevertis.
Koks vakaras ilgas, kaip širdim man kelia. Nuskink man jazminą,